have a continuous rotation of media houses and representatives who will speak with the Prime Minister to address any areas of concerns and discuss issues of national importance. With us today, we have Mr. Ralston Ranking of Sugar City FM. Yes, and Mr. Jason Davis of ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation and Mr. Glenn Bath of the SKN Newsline. As usual, gentlemen, as you're aware, you state your names and the media house that you represent before stating your questions and so forth towards the Prime Minister. We'll have the Prime Minister now give his opening remarks and begin the session.
Yes, good morning to all of our citizens who are listening and are viewing. Welcome again to another roundtable where we take the opportunity to dialogue with the press on very, very important national matters. Today, I want to say that I come here after having visited Bahamas, been a part of the Vice President of the United States dialogue with the CARICOM or Caribbean leaders. And therefore, I want to thank you for your time. As I said, recently I traveled to the Bahamas for the U.S. Caribbean Leaders Meeting, co-hosted by the chairman of CARICOM, Prime Minister of Bahamas, the Honorable Philip Davis, and the Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris, and this occurred on June 8th. We discussed a number of critical matters at that meeting. Of course, we spoke about security, Caribbean climate investment, PAC 2030, which I can go into. We also discussed issues of food security and so forth. But my intervention was centered around one, security in the Caribbean and what the Caribbean and US can do to further enhance our cooperation for the security of the region. And that bore significant fruits, and a number of announcements were made which are already having significant impact on our national security here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And so I want to thank the US government and especially the Vice President for her commitment and her country's commitment to share, to be partners rather with Caribbean leaders where we can meet our shared goals and objectives. I also had the opportunity there to speak at the one-day PAC 2030 summit that was held on the sidelines of the US Vice President's visit to the Bahamas to bring together companies from the US and Caribbean nations, local leaders, technical assistance experts, policy experts, academics, and government partners to discuss the best practices in advancing climate resilient, clean energy in the Caribbean, to identify funding and technical assistance gaps that could be bridged through greater partnerships, and explore opportunities to further unleash the clean energy, renewable energy transition in the Caribbean while building greater climate resilience. And so I was a guest speaker at PAC 2030, and I must say that the meeting was extremely successful. And at that meeting, we dialogued significantly about climate resiliency. We went into issues of clean energy, such as geothermal in the Federation and other renewable energy sources. The US Caribbean PAC 2030 was launched by the US Vice President Kamala Harris and Caribbean leaders at the June 2022 Summit of the Americas in Los Angeles. PAC 2030 is the US government's flagship partnership with Caribbean partners to advance climate adaptation and resilience and to expand clean energy programs across the region. And so we'll get more into that because I'm sure the press here would have questions with respect to that. I also want to touch on another issue, which is the GAE payment adjustment. It was a pleasure celebrating and honoring the hard work and dedication of the retired government auxiliary employees yesterday, and even a greater pleasure providing them with their just reward. As a government, we are cognizant of the fact, and indeed, empirical data would suggest that improving people's well-being is fundamentally linked to their conditions of work. And so we, as a government, took the full cabinet decision where we decided to once again pay the GAE workers their gratuity based on the same calculation that appointed civil servants get. When we did this, we recognized that a number of workers, we had about on the list close to 70 workers who were affected negatively because of a policy shift that took place in 2021. That shift led to a smaller gratuitous payout for the GAE workers. We adjusted it and we made it retroactive back to 2021, and we were able to pay our GAE workers what they expected once they would have retired. We had people, of course, who would have received almost 3 times the amount that they got in 2021 yesterday. And this will not only affect those who are now retired, but it would affect every single GAE worker now. And I'm talking about hundreds, if not thousands, of workers who will get an adjusted gratuitous payment, which is much more favorable. So it was really indeed a policy of this administration to reverse what we saw as an unjust policy in 2021 by the former administration, where they adjusted the payout for GAE workers downwards and downwards significantly. This would affect many of the workers. For example, your crossing guards, they will be affected. For example, those who might be GAE workers in different government offices and so forth. So we know thousands of workers over time will be impacted positively. And so those GAE workers receive their due payout, and we feel, of course, that justice was restored. The amount paid out came up to over $700,000, approaching $1 million. And this is afforded to GAE workers for their long service payment who would have worked a minimum of 10 years. And so that restoration of justice to the GAE workers was accomplished yesterday, and that will be the policy of this administration going forward. So any GAE worker who is to now retire, he or she would, of course, get this new calculated gratuitous payout, which is a significant increase from that which they would have gotten in 2021. And this is part of really our policy making and our strategy to make sure we do as much as possible for our workers here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We had workers getting, some of them, extra $12,000, $15,000. It was a significant amount more that they got compared to 2021. I also want to touch on OECS Week of Activities. As you know, this year, as the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, I'll be assuming the chairmanship of the OECS Authority, and we will be having over this weekend coming, where we will be celebrating here in St. Kitts and Nevis the anniversary, 42nd anniversary actually, during this time. So we will have a number of activities taking place, but just to say, it will really culminate with the opening, the official opening on Sunday, and the actual meeting, which is to take place on Saturday. And of course, we have a significant agenda to deal with issues that affect us here in the OECS. But we will have a walk on Saturday, which will start at 6 a.m. and it goes, and that walk goes from the movies all the way over to Frigate Bay. We also have on Sunday the flag raising ceremony. And so those will take place this weekend here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I also want to touch on the fact of the JetBlue partnership. That is a significant partnership which is a year-round service by JetBlue out of New York 3 times a week. And it will go through all year, no slowdown, even during the summertime. We estimate that this would add significantly to the improvement of tourist arrival here in St. Kitts and Nevis. It would help with occupancy, and of course, the economic spin-off would be significant as well. And so I want to congratulate the Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Marsha Henderson, and her team who is doing an excellent job to make sure that tourism continue to thrive. And if you had the opportunity to hear her in Parliament yesterday, I think she went more in depth. Also, Inter-Caribbean, as we know, is doing excellently well. They are now going to use a bigger aircraft, a 50-seater, to travel down to Barbados. It is always full to and from, which means that there is significant demand on that route, and that is helping significantly. We also see that we have American Airlines that is putting on extra flights because of the demand, and we saw that last weekend. So what we are picking up is that the demand for the destination is extremely, extremely high, to the point where the British Airways, more people come on that flight for St. Kitts than Antigua in the last numbers. It shows that St. Kitts is really holding its own. And that is why we condemn vehemently that false advisory about St. Kitts. Persons who do that are persons who don't like St. Kitts and Nevis, persons who are against St. Kitts and Nevis. Why, what other reason would persons put out a false advisory against St. Kitts and Nevis other than to hurt us? But our brand is strong, and we will work through that. We have condemned it in all quarters to make sure that our country is not attacked by those who wish to see us fail. And if this is being carried out by some nationals, and we suspect that there might be some operatives, some of whom are nationals who, for political reasons, are seeking to hurt St. Kitts and Nevis, I want to say to them to remember the motto of country above self. And we should always seek to put our country's best foot forward. And so we have done a significant amount of work, and therefore we continue to work on behalf of the people. And the issue of national security, as we all know, and I've been totally open with it, that there had been an increase in criminal activity in certain aspects, especially when we see some gun violence taking place. I want to say that the police has quickly responded, and they have done a lot to really bring the issue under some significant control. And they have also been able to get 2 persons, not arrested, but charged in very quick time. And I want to congratulate Commissioner Sutton and his team for working so quickly. They have a plan and a strategy, and I think it will work, and it is working. We'll continue to improve upon it to make sure that citizen security is a guarantee here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We want to thank those from the region and international who are partnering with us. I want to say once again, the United States has made its commitment, and it's carrying out its commitment to help us. And the resources will be used to ensure that there is security for our citizens and for those who visit us. I want to take this opportunity to condemn this violence and to say to the young people that choose better. You have opportunities here in St. Kitts and Nevis that others will die to get. And this government, your government, continues to work to enhance those opportunities. And we encourage you to take those opportunities. But at this particular time, I want to say that we were able to arrest this. We did not have to bring any forces from outside. Technical support, of course, which is critical and is working extremely, extremely well. But once again, I want to really congratulate the security forces on what they're doing. Of course, people might ask for some more detail. There are things in the details that one would not expect to be given, but just to know that the police and the security forces have put a plan in place and they are working extremely hard to make sure that this is carried out and to ensure that there is a sustainable, practical, legitimate way of making sure that citizen security is guaranteed. I would like to say if we listen to the police press conference and we listened to the police some weeks ago on Freedom FM, when one of the police officers would have mentioned that there were young people, children in primary school aspiring to be part of the peace program. If you listen to the ACP, he said that this program was used in a corrupt way. And from our data, we know that this was used in a corrupt way. Really, once it became monetized in a corrupt way, it created a significant bad situation for St. Kitts and Nevis. And those are not just my words from our assessment, but if you listen to the police officers and even the ACPs and so forth, we in St. Kitts and Nevis know what was happening. But we had started some significant work to, of course, revamp and replace the program, one that would really benefit those on the program in a sustainable and positive way, and to ensure that we extract and get rid of the corrupt monetization of that program. Programs like those were tried in other countries that I mentioned, and they all failed, and those countries ended up in worse situations. For example, El Salvador, a former prime minister, is actually in prison as a result, and you all should look up that for these type of monetization programs. They are sustainable, solid programs that can be introduced to benefit those who are on the program and to benefit the country in a sustainable way. And that is the pathway that we have decided to go. It is the best pathway to go and really to stamp out the corruption and the racketeering of monies to the development bank and so forth that was taking place. And so we have put an end to that, and we are creating a program that would really benefit our young people. And once again, before I wrap up on this point, is to say to our young people, choose positivity over negativity. But let me say before I go that I had never ever made crime and violence a political issue. This is a complex matter. It is a national issue, really. And even in opposition, didn't use it to gain any political advantage, because if we don't deal with this as a nation and from a national standpoint, it gives us less chance of resolving it. And so I am happy when I hear persons saying that this is a national issue and we should deal with it as such. If you hear the utterances of the leader of the opposition coming from quarters like the churches and other civic groups, everybody is calling for the same thing. And when you have that type of momentum and movement of a people to deal with an issue, it gives us the best opportunity to deal with it. And that is where we are, of course, putting our resources to resolve this matter at this particular juncture. So I want to thank all those who have done significant work, and our regional partners and international partners, and the resources that are being put in and the support that is there to ensure that this is done. Let me say that we have that type of support on the ground, ongoing, and that support will remain. It's significant support, and we will make sure that we have the best support that we can have to resolve this matter. So with that, I just want to wrap up that statement and give you, the press, a chance to dialogue and discuss these issues of national importance. So thank you for giving me those moments to make that introduction.
Good morning, Prime Minister.
Good morning, Mr. Bert.
Glenn Bart, SKN Newsline. My first two questions. One in relation to the meeting that you recently returned from in the Bahamas. Vice President Kamala Harris did talk about assisting the Caribbean with renewable energy programs. Now, what is not clear is exactly how is that being accomplished. Take, for example, the situation for St. Kitts and Nevis, particularly geothermal on Nevis. What exactly is being done by the U.S. government to assist us in that program. Secondly, uh, in regards to violence and the concept of violence as a mental health is public health issue. Now, we had a meeting with Dr. Patrick Martin just yesterday. A very, very useful, very informative meeting indeed. But it seems to be a very complex situation that is going to require a lot of not only governmental approaches, but non-governmental involvement as well. The all of society. Right. So as we look towards resolving these issues on a medium-term basis, how are we going to gel all of the components together to really make a dent in the violent situations at home, in school, and in the communities in general?
Right. I want to thank you very much, Mr. Bat, for those questions. I will start from the first one, the geothermal with St. Kitts and Nevis. First of all, we are approaching this as a national resource. With doing that, it means we were able to approach CDB, the Caribbean Development Bank, and as the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, I signed off so that we could have gotten about 17 million US dollars in a grant loan. That grant loan is now in effect. I already signed for the first tranche of it to be used. And so this really is for drilling because the testing has been done. And so the CDB, sent out the RFPs and they're working along with NEVLEC. And so we had about a number of companies that applied, 30 something to 40 something. Then it narrowed down to a smaller number. And so we sent it out again because we intend for the drilling to take place. Once that drilling takes place, it tells us exactly how much energy we have access to, which we are thinking can be a gigawatt, which means 1,000 megawatts. St. Kitts and Nevis together, the maximum we use is about 50 megawatts. And I'm talking about 1,000 megawatts. So you'll be left back with 950 megawatts, which can power almost all the other countries, islands around us. So it gives the opportunity to run cables to connect the other countries so that they can buy energy from our federation. So I would put it that way. But this is where the US comes in. One, at that meeting, I was a guest speaker, as you know, both the Prime Minister of Bahamas, because he's the host, but I was the main guest speaker at that event. And at that event, I listened carefully, and this is what was able to be done. The US, through PAC 30, was able to bring everybody in the room. So there was CDB, IDB, the World Bank, who gave a presentation at the opening or the main meeting. And so remember, this money comes from CDB, which can link to IDB, which can link to the World Bank. So in terms of setting up the framework to channel the resources necessary, the US plays a fundamental role in that. And here I was with the US partners, including CDB, IDB, and World Bank, who had given a presentation at the same time. And that, of course, created synergies. The other issue is, of course, the technical support in helping us to prepare to go out to market. How are we going to now sell this so that we can bring companies in? And what they did at that meeting, they brought in companies who normally invest in renewable energy, because this really gave the opportunity for us to make those connections. And so they have brought people together, first from the financial side and also from the technical side, to put frameworks in place to help to push this forward. And so that has been significant in terms of helping us. And so I see this will be a fruit. So from those two fundamental perspectives, there's a council called the Atlantic Council. On that council, we have a member who represents the Caribbean, Ms. Chen, who has Trinidadian roots, who worked very closely with me in coordinating these meetings. And then you have to speak about the other US officials like Brian and those who are part of the US contingent to deal with the PAC 2030. So the US is very, very much involved from the technical side, from helping to get resources to the table to see these through. So it's not only going to be in St. Kitts and Nevis, but the Vice President, and I want to really congratulate her for her position and to give a commendation for taking this strong position in helping the Caribbean to transition to renewable energy. So those are the two fundamental aspects that I think would lend to successful projects in the region, of course, being helped by the United States at this time as well. Okay, and the other one you asked about violence from the public. Now, this is the all society approach that people always speak about. What we do, something we get spate of violence from time to time, right? And people say, bring everybody together. And the correct approach is that everybody has to be at the table. The thing is, how do you get people at the table? I don't think we'll have a problem in St. Kitts and Nevis. If you make a call, they will come. But once they come to the table, how do you coordinate that? How does that make sense? So that you can apply actions that are based on science, scientific research, and scientific outcomes that you will be successful. How do you do that? This, for the first time, is being applied in the Caribbean. It is a study that had been done by the World Bank, and I think it was the Caribbean leaders who asked for it. But when the study was delivered, I can't, from asking others, no country in the Caribbean had implemented this, how it should have been implemented. From what I learned, the South Americans, from Dr. Williams, the Central Americans especially, had adopted it, and it helped significantly with their violence issues. But we had not done it. When we had the first task force, we had multiple ministries there, including Dwyer Astafan, a past Minister of National Security, and Dr. Isben Williams, with Minister of National Security, Social Services, Education, and so forth, the main players in the room. And one of the things that was said, which was very inspiring and hopeful, was that we have all the pieces, basically. We have almost all the pieces in St. Kitts and Nevis. It is just that we have never had the opportunity to bring all of them together. We have them. Preschool education and access to preschool, we have them. We have a public health system where all children and almost everybody have access to health on some level. We have an education system all the way up to college, which is free, which is free. When you look, so if you look from our public education system, our health system, we have multiple organizations in the community. The church on every corner almost, or in every village, multiple churches as there. You have multiple organizations, be there sporting organizations, clubs, or what have you. So we have them. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. And fortunately, we have built up that as a nation over many, many decades. We have social programs. And if you look at the social programs, people can get help who are in dire need. We have a public housing program. We have a PEP STEP program that can give people at least temporary work. So we have, a voucher system for food and, a child welfare system for children. So we have almost everything that is needed in all of this, right? If you look at the all society approach. And so what this seeks to do now is to bring everybody to the table, set up the framework, the plan of action that would permeate every single organization, major organization, ministries, structures, government, and non-government. And this is where we will bring everything together and allow it to work. So we are in a good place in terms of being able to implement something like this. So we have all of that Dr. Patrick Martin spoke about. It sounds very complex, but we happen to have them here in St. Kitts and Nevis because since in the 60s, 70s, we have been building out these things, education, healthcare, access to housing, and so forth, and social programs so that our people can have an improved standard and condition of living. And so now we're going to gel all of these with a plan of action to really allow this to permeate. Now, you spoke about the immediate term to, of course, national security and so forth would have to have their plan, which they're carrying out right now, because you need to deal with things right now. and tough, but you just can't deal with things when they pop up. While you're dealing with this from this level, at the same time, we are implementing this at this level to buttress what you want. That is why you have groups like Explorers Club, or you have the cadets, diversion programs, or other programs to attract young people. So it's a multi-pronged approach which would involve all of us. And it's not a burden for each person. It's just that wherever you are in your space, you just carry out what you have to carry out. And I'm sure the media has to be a part of it, because the media has to be responsible as well with the type of information it sends out. But apart from that, the media can send out positive messages. You can put something together. The Media Association can decide how are we going to help the violence situation in St. Kitts. We are about information. Information can influence. So let's use our platform to influence positively in the society and use that platform to condemn violence. And you don't have to do anything extra. I'm working as a media person, and if I'm part of this, which I'm sure you'll be a part of it, our thing is to spread information. Okay, we can give information about the program, that's one, but we can also say, look, our contribution to society to deal with violence is to spread positive messages, condemn negativity, do not glorify violence, because in some places the media glorifies violence. And it's attractive for some criminals to see the name on the front page, for example. Boy, make the front page. But you can now use your media sources, or your media, or the media can use different ways of really getting out the message against violence and pro holistic living. Or I would put it in this way, to promote citizen security. So that is where you have your role as well. The football coach has his or her role as well. Everybody has a role, but wherever they are, we are going to coordinate that so that everybody is doing their part, but we are working towards the same goal and not working in silos. Because I get a lot of examples. Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And those are good suggestions that people are giving. It's just that if you do it, it is isolated and in silos. But what we want is the synergistic impact of having everybody working towards the same goal and in some way complementing each other. So in speaking to Dr. Patrick Martin, who is one of my advisors, who had been looking at this matter for decades, same with Dr. Isbeth Williams, and probably because both are medical doctors, one being a psychiatrist, one being a pediatrician, and this is actually a study within medicine that had not been adopted before. So we're going to look at it from a multi-pronged perspective.
Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister. Thank you for the invite, first and foremost, at the round table. Ralston Rankin from Sugar City FM. Before I go into my questions, I also would like to thank you and the fire department for assisting the residents of Stapleton and OG for most part, especially Sunday. They worked really hard helping with the water shortage situation, and they continue to do so. So I want to thank them as well, and I'm sure you will also give them some praise on that. Okay, my first question. At the last press conference, I asked a question on the CBI. Since then, I've gotten a lot of calls and texts from persons, basically would like you to clarify whether or not they will be getting it, or the dividend, sorry, the CBI dividend. Yes, the CBI dividend. Yes, whether they will be getting it or not, and if you can give an explanation as to why. Secondly, I'm not going to ask this question because I know the minister is not here on the minimum wage situation, but I will ask this. Whatever the outcome comes from the minimum wage, because we don't know how much it's going to be by, will your government try to do something to help with the cost of living? Because persons fear that the increase, business places might want to take the prices a little bit higher, which would be a bit unfair to persons who receive the minimum wage. So that's my two questions for now.
That's an excellent question. You're very calm and cool, but your questions are very, you ask about the dividend. Let me go back to the genesis of the dividend. It's the idea of having a national resource and how you can share that national resource directly with the people. It is done in other places, of course, not within the region or that I know of in the Western Hemisphere. It's done in the Gulf countries, for example, Saudi Arabia might do some of it. I know one time Libya used to do it as well. And so I said to the people, if we have enough of the resource, then we can give a direct deposit to our people, and hopefully they can use it as a portfolio to start investments. You start at this amount, you say, let me take this and invest it in something. Because we have to get our people not to just be consumers or not just to save. Saving is very important, but there's a step up from saving, which is investments. And based on your investments, you get dividends. So that is a concept. So people, I want our people to understand it is not a fixed amount. It depends on how well you do. So that can vary accordingly. So we are presently looking at it very closely because, as I've said, once there is room, we will do it. And we will have an announcement one way or the other very, very shortly. I have cabinet today, and I would do that. So I can say I would have an answer for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, for our people, before the end of the week. So that is a very excellent question. So that is where we are at. Now, on the question of dividend, we, as I said before, we want to get our people to become investors and to understand that field of finance. As a matter of fact, I was speaking to a finance expert because we are looking at how we can introduce financial education in the schools, but not just in the schools, but on a national level. Our people have to now start to invest in order to secure their future. It just cannot be savings anymore, because savings over time, you can actually lose the value of money. We know that for those who study finance a little bit closer, correct? And what we want them to do is to think these ways. We have companies in St. Kitts, well, a particular company whose name I will not mention now, where we own a significant amount of it in percentage. And our plan is to divest some of those and to create shares so that our people can make extra money. So while you're working, you make some money. So why not have an investment in one of these companies where you can get a dividend at the end of the year and be able to carry home some money as well? And so we are going to do that. We are looking to see what other companies we can buy in and create those shares and sell them to our people, just as we do with National Bank. And to get somebody from Keon, St. Peter's, well, you can take, if you get a few $100s and say, let me buy some shares, and those shares you make something on it, and you can eventually pass that on to your children and support it. Create different portfolios. So our people have to start thinking in those ways, but of course, we want to start the education so that they know how to do it. So that is the concept of the dividend. So the dividend is not a fixed payout. It depends on how much, whatever the resources the companies make, and then you can say this, and after covering all the costs, this is what here, and then you can get a dividend as a result of that. But nonetheless, I will have an answer. So it's not fixed. It is not going to be something that I can guarantee all the time. And when you do investments, you will recognize that. This is the first time maybe on a national level, the idea of investments and dividend and so forth is being introduced in this particular way, where national resources being shared with the people. But by the end of this week, we'll have a response for that. And if not, you can call me directly and ask me, because it's important, and I need to really comply with your question, and I give you that word. And the issue of the minimum wage, you are right. One of the questions that always come with minimum wage is inflation, increase in prices, because they don't want to give people more money in their pocket, and then after they give more money in their pocket, the things gone up. So their buying power basically has not changed. And therefore, that is not what you want. You want to give people an increase in minimum wage, which means you are increasing their power, and so that can buy more stuff and do more things for them. And so you don't just want to do it. But we have everybody at the table at this particular time. We continue to discuss and negotiate to make sure that we reach the best possible. But what I'm putting in place is a committee. And that committee has to review whether yearly, twice, every 2 years, they have to review the minimum wage. We don't want people to work for minimum wage. We encourage people not to pay people minimum wage. But if that is the case, we want it to be at such that you give them the best possible minimum wage that they can have. The workers in St. Kitts and Nevis have not received a minimum wage adjustment for almost a decade. I think the last time was 2013, 2014, so it's about a decade. And you ask yourself, why haven't anything come? Why, so how you could pass a decade and not adjust the minimum wage? That is a serious question to be asked. And therefore, there have to be a committee in place. And I would like there to be a committee that is even independent of the government. So it doesn't matter which administration is in. And they will do a review of the minimum wage and present it. And so this is our recommendation, looking at the whole of the economy and so forth, right? And you take that basically off the political platform, because if it's on the political platform, people can say as they like, but I want it to be such that it's almost mandated that it has to be looked at, and then whatever is agreed is delivered to the administration in office with the recommendation that this is the adjustment that you should give. And so we want to go as far as that. And so I, as the Minister of Finance, will then ask the AG to look at the legislation surrounding that, look at where this might be practiced so we don't have to invent the wheel, but to make sure that the minimum wage of our people and is always, always looked at, and the best possible recommendation is put forward. But that's a very good question about inflation. We are doing a lot to manage inflation in St. Kitts and Nevis. For example, we are subsidizing water. Even the water we're buying from Marriott for our people, we are subsidizing that. So there's no increased operational cost. We are subsidizing electricity significantly so that we can keep down that cost being passed on to the people. But as a matter of fact, our country has one of the lowest rate of inflation. One of the lowest rate of inflation. We have our challenges post-COVID like other countries, but we have one of the lowest rate of inflation. And it's basically because we are doing a lot. We have not, even some of the taxes, we have not adjusted at this point in time, even though the recommendation is there, to see how we can continue to help our people and protect our people from the inflation. So we see some tempering of inflation in the United States, for example, and we hope that that tempering of inflation will translate through the Caribbean and through the region. And so by 2024, we can see the economy in a better stead, and inflation is better controlled then. But in the meantime, we are dealing with cost of living by the support that we are giving. And also, from the agricultural standpoint, we are on a pathway to what you call 25-25. By 2025, we want to cut our imports by 25%. We have been putting a strategy in place, and the Minister of Agriculture has met with the stakeholders, being the farmers and so forth, and the producers, and a plan is being devised to deal with that. Again, on the trip, the Americans have put forward $30 million to do a greenhouse project across the region. Guyana, who is the Caribbean spokesperson on food security, President Ali has put a plan forward. At the meeting, he asked for about the funding, and the Vice President right there said to unleash the funding. We will benefit from that as well. And so that food security plan throughout the Caribbean, we think can work significantly. Even here, if we are dealing with our water issues and our agriculture, we can really cut significantly the imports. And that would help us to temper cost of food and to make us more secure, because during the COVID, you remember, where's the food gonna come from? The boats are coming. What if those boats had stopped? We would have run out of food in less than a week. That is a sad state to be in. And we are determined that we want to achieve 25 by 25. We are also seeking investments in the area of food through fishing industry, through poultry industry as well, the protein aspect of it, and then we have the food crop. So we are pursuing that, but we are moving ahead with our own greenhouse plan. So we are not waiting on the CARICOM plan that is supported by the US, but I'm sure that that will come. When that comes, it will buttress what we have already. So the Caribbean is moving on that and food security. So we really want to cut the cost of food over time.
Jason Davis, ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation. Couple of questions. I know there was some discussion about moving to a twice monthly payment. What's the status with that? Any further update? Are we going to be moving to that method of payment for civil servants? Also, earlier you strongly condemned the monetization of the peace program and you said that there are plans to revamp the peace program. Can you speak a bit more to that? Speak to exactly what exactly do you mean by the corrupt monetization of the program, and how do you plan to revamp it to do away with that?
Thank you very much, Jason. Those are two very good questions. And I'll start with the first one. It's an easy one. The Inland Revenue, or the Treasury rather, led on this. And they had gone and met with all of the financial institutions in St. Kitts and Nevis. They are all on board. I can say that. That's one. I think one institution even put out the information to their people. What we're having in this week is that the government, the Human Resource Department, and the head of service, they're now going to meet with the civil servants in two meetings that they're going to have at the park to inform our people of the twice monthly payment. So the twice monthly payment is going to start very soon. I would say within the next month. It could be as early as July, but it's on track. Why? Studies have shown that it's better, people manage and budget better twice monthly than monthly. Even in the United States, when I worked there, I used to get paid every 2 weeks or twice monthly. And it made a difference in terms of your budgeting and so forth. So they were preparing the institutions and so forth for the adjustments in payments for standing loans and so forth. So that's going to be done very, very soon, Jason. Now, the other thing was the monetization. The monetization was the corrupt monetization. A program like this can be a program where people can be given incentives to learn a trade, to start a business, and we want to give our young people those opportunities. Right now, the program is going to be relaunched in July. It would have training aspects to it. It would have educational small business aspects to it. It would have other type of engagements to it. So it is going to be relaunched. And therefore, how we are going to make it transparent in terms of what people get for being on the program. And we're also going to sign up persons who work with Social Security so they can have something for later years. It's going to be open and transparent and through a proper system of how people are compensated. What happened, and I would manage how much information I give, but I would like to say that the development bank was used as a conduit to funnel tens of millions of dollars in a corrupt way using the name of this program. There's no doubt about that. We have done the forensic studies on it. That we have stopped. This program will be transparent with all the other programs. And so you saw a particular budget out there, and then after that there was this underground dark budget, which was really racketeering in the worst of ways. And that is why I think that people, when they hear this, their jaws drop open. And if you listen to the ACP when he spoke, who was part of the program from the beginning, you would hear what he said. And so we had children out there aspiring not to become, I would say, whatever they wanted to become, other than just put me on this program. And it cannot be like that. We cannot accept that. And that is why we stopped the racketeering. But to be compensated on the program in a transparent way, we did not stop that. So when you hear people say the government stopped that, we did not stop that. We did not think we needed to stop that. What we needed to do was to replace the program and to make sure that that is transparent and that had a particular objective and it would be sustainable. If you have somebody on a program, you're supposed to be able to bring them on and bring them off, but by the time they get off, they're in a better stead than when they were on. They have a small business, so they now can take care of themselves. They have a trade and they want to move on. They don't want to just stay here. They have a farm, right? They want to work for a company. Why not? They should have access to all of this. They're starting their families. They're moving on. And so we want to give people the opportunity to move on, do well, and move on as well. And that is why we have a TVET, a vocational study teacher on it, a vocational teacher who is someone who works in the vocational space on the committee. We have discussed with Tibet, civic cues and those things, so that people can get these recognizable certification. If they say they want to work in a different country, why not? Just like anybody else. So what we want to do is to give people opportunities on the new program that they can make options for their lives, just like any other citizen. And that is what we are creating at this particular juncture. But the corrupt monetization, racketeering that took place was leading to this. Because we know that in every other country where this type of system was implemented, it never worked. It could never work. And so I asked myself the question, why did we choose to bring a program like this in St. Kitts and Nevis? And let me say in the beginning, when this started, the guys are the ones who came together and said, look, we have to end this thing. The corrupt monetization took place after. From my own assessment and what I've been told by those who were there, it's about 8 months after that this type of monetization took place. But we know people use the program. Officials use the program as a means to enrich themselves. It was a conduit for them to enrich themselves. And so they created a system, a program that really was not necessary to be created, because you had the best scenario where those who were involved in these kind of activities decided they wanted to end it. So it was not a government who ended it. It was they who determined to end it. But once they determined that, the corrupt monetization of the program took place. And those are not my words. You heard the ACP talk. And when you listen to the police officer who was on the radio and say what people are aspiring to, it tells you that we were in a really, really bad situation. So we want to continue to provide good opportunities for our young people, give them the opportunity to advance their lives in a way, and to end the corrupt monetization that was part of this program.
Just a quick follow-up. I'm a stickler for specifics. So I wanted to just ask, now you mentioned that there were some officials that were, I'm not gonna ask for names because I doubt you're gonna be able to give me the names, but what I will ask is the method that was used. There were some rumors going around that names were being placed on the list that did not belong there, and false identities were being created. Are those the methods that you're referring to in which officials enrich themselves? And while we're on the topic of the peace program and development, can you give us any more information about the audit development bank?
Right. So I would say, with respect to the false accounts and so forth, yes, they existed. They existed, false. So you had it went as bad as, you just put any name there. One person told me the name of a dog was on it. Yes. And the money being channeled, and you put these names, and these are ghost names. Who is this person? Where they from? You can't find them. But the money is being channeled somewhere. That is just one way of putting on all these false names. The other way was this way. Cash used to be had from another institution directly to the development bank to be divided in cash. We remembered when the bank used to open on Sundays. We know that. We saw the pictures going around. Why is the development bank open on a Saturday afternoon? Why is it open on a Sunday? We remember those days when raw cash used to be given. You come there, $600,000, $700,000 on a table, and you split it up. I can't go into the details because, this is the audit which at the right time would come forward. But I mean, this is part of what took place. And we're talking tens of millions of dollars. I mean, when you have a scenario like that, which country can sustain that? It's not even about the sustainability, it's about the corruptibility and the racketeering that took place that you really can't continue with. You just can't. We will end. And these are the kind of things that we met there. And so we want to create a program that is wholesome, accountable, transparent, open, so that it can achieve the objectives that it has to achieve. However, I would say this would take significant work, and we are willing to put in the significant work. And more importantly, we have already started to work with the regional and international partners to make sure that we get the national security apparatus right. I think it should not be a place where these type of things can take place and nothing, no type of repercussion. Justice is important as well, and so we are pushing forward there. But to answer your question, those were multiple ways in which money was channeled into the pockets of people to enrich them, while others were deprived.
The audit itself, can you tell us anything?
193-page document that is, of course, being studied very, very closely. That is what I would say. But it has been done, and it was done by an external firm. Well, we don't want to publicize anything as yet, but it will be available at the right time. Because remember, the Development Bank had not been audited since 2018. The last time it was audited is 2018. When I asked, why is it the bank was not audited? COVID. We had COVID in 2018? No. We had COVID in 2019? No. They said there is a delay. But then I look at National Bank, properly audited and up to date and so forth. The other financial institutions, properly audited. But this is not audited since 2018. Everybody lost confidence in the National Bank. I mean, in the Development Bank, sorry. National Bank is very good, very solid, and well run. But the Development Bank had many issues to the point where they stopped doing audits. And that led, the first thing when I go to partners and I say, can we have a development partnership? Which bank are you going to use? Development Bank. The first thing they ask you for, where's the last audit? I can't bring an audit to them from 2017 or 2018. They're going to say, where's the audit from for the intervening years? Because they want to make sure that they're not part of a corrupt system, because they too have to answer to who they have to answer to. Why did you lend all of that money to an institution that couldn't present you with an audit? So if they can't present you with an audit, the assumption is money is disappearing. Were you part of that? That is why these organizations take this thing extremely seriously. So what we are doing now, stabilizing the Development Bank, which we have done. We are now conducting a student loan, which we have done very well, and a small business loan. And now we are getting ready to bring in an auditing company, an international company, so that that company can do an audit, so that when we present what we have to present, that it is something that people would see as legitimate, and put the bank back on a pathway, which we are now forging ahead with, that would be respected, and the bank can achieve its objectives once again. So that is where we are at when it comes to Development Bank. A significant amount of work has to be done in order to get it back into real good light. But we are determined to do it. As I said, we're not looking any excuses, but we have to do an assessment of what we found and what we need to do to transform the bank into, once again, a very respectable and reputable institution.
It's just an extension of what you're saying. It seems to me that what you are implying also is that some of those activities were illegal activities, and therefore those activities have to be investigated, and there is the potential of charges being brought to certain individuals. Am I correct with that assessment?
Well, I would say the assessment is the law should apply equally across. If a man got thief 2 coconut and get caught, he has to answer to the law. And so where the law has to apply, it has to apply. I am not in any witch hunt, but where there is information found that has to be pursued, then you have to allow it to take its course, just like for any other citizen. So I would say, once this is being looked at, and whatever the measures are to take place, the measures will have to take place. Because this, when you can't account for tens of millions of dollars. I mean, that is something very serious. Then if somebody come now and say, here we can account for it, then we can say, okay, there's nothing to be done. The money can be accounted for, right? So that is the process we are going through at this time.
Some years ago, there was a groundbreaking ceremony at the near the Kim Collins Highway with regards to a solar energy project involving a company by the name of, I believe it is Leclanche, Uncle Clanche. What has become of that? It was supposed to be a very large project involving Skellig, but then after a while, nothing was heard of it.
So as you know, that project, the Second Legislative Party before had been speaking about renewable energy. Remember before you had the solar farm at the airport and one at the Frigate Bay Road. And there was a company here that was building solar panels that closed down somewhere after 2015. However, this came to the fore of a solar project, and the government, of course, has going to be prudent. This is a very large project. Let's go through this project. I would, at this time, say that the Minister of Energy will come very shortly to give more specifics on it. There's information to give to the public, and I would give the Minister of Energy the opportunity. So I would say, Glenn, and let us be specific on this one, with ranking, that give us within the next month. It could be much shorter than that, but worst case scenario, 1 month to give the details on this. It's an excellent question, and we are very, very close to give a final, word with respect to this project. Very, very close. If it doesn't happen in the next month, I will say I will be back here or on the press conference, and you really should ask me that question again. I'll ask the Minister of Energy about that as well, because it's a critical question to be answered. So I just want you to know that we are here, we are transparent, open, and willing to answer. Where I cannot give all of the information at this moment, I will tell you a time frame in which we will come and give you the opportunity to bring that again to us to make sure that you hold us accountable, as well.
Many years ago, the light manufacturing industries were established under what is called the CBI program of the United States. I think it's under President Reagan at the time that he set it up. But since then, the global economic environment has changed. You find a lot of companies have left the Caribbean. They're going now towards China and elsewhere. As small countries of the Eastern Caribbean, St. Kitts and Nevis specifically, what would be the best way forward to re-establish light manufacturing, maybe not necessarily in the form that it was before, but some new way to get this kind of technology back into the economy?
Right, it's a very good question. Glenn, again. First of all, the Minister of Trade and Investment, the Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas, is working on this significantly. I don't know if he would have mentioned it in a press conference, but suffice it to say that we met with the Chamber recently. We had the opportunity to meet with the Chamber. And part of it was exactly what you are saying. And interestingly enough, there is a niche market out there for small manufacturing and light manufacturing, as you call it. And we are pursuing that. It is not all companies that are leaving. As a matter of fact, the company in Sandy Point might have to expand because they are being asked, based on what they produce, they are being asked to produce more. And I think that company was producing a part for the ventilators at that time. So it had a niche. So there is a niche market that can be sought, and we see that with the factory that is in Sandy Point. And so I was excited when I heard that in the meeting that we had with the chamber. And we are pursuing along that pathway as well. And they are pursuing along that pathway. We want to reestablish the industrial park as an industrial area and look for different type of industries to come in. So even though there's a pathway for small manufacturing, which we'll do. We have our own manufacturers here. For example, we are thinking, can we outfit one of these factories so that our manufacturers can use it? We make a lot of things here in St. Kitts and Nevis. For example, recently somebody said, Dr. Joe, I got an order for 30,000 bottles of hot pepper, one of my constituents. And she said, where am I going to bottle 30,000 bottles of hot pepper? So we are thinking, should we outfit one of these factories, shells rather, with that type of equipment so that our people can use it? You have people who have become very good in, let's say, making soap, making this. Like manufacturing, it may not be technology, but if you look around, there are a lot of people into these things, and they just can't scale it up because they don't have the means to scale it up. And one of the things that we are considering, strongly considering, is to outfit at least one of them with the equipment so that our people can go at that scale. Can you imagine if she can sell 30,000 bottles of hot pepper? And you have somebody making soap can do thousands of their specialized herbal soap to be shipped out, somebody doing scented this and scented that, but we want it at a high level. So we are pursuing that. As a matter of fact, let me go a little further. I met with an ambassador, a regional ambassador from a major country, and they want to help us, as I speak, to invest at least $1 million to start to fit out one of these factories so that our people can have access. So one, light manufacturing is for some factories might leave, while other factories have find niche and say, and I was told we can develop this niche in St. Kitts and Nevis because we have a manufacturing workforce in St. Kitts and Nevis. These women fundamentally over the years have become experts in what they do, and they're very good and very efficient. And that is why that factory is running so well, because you already have people trained to do that. And there's a better income in terms of, because what they're doing is high-end stuff. And there is now a need for that type of high-end light manufacturing. And we should tap into it even more. So I'm going to explore it. And while we do that, our own local manufacturers, we are seeing how we can upscale them, and that is part of the plan as well.
Yes, Mr. PM, I have one final question for you. Last year on the 27th of October, an inmate by the name of, oh, sorry, louder? Okay, great. Okay, is that good? All right. Yes, last year on the 27th of October, an inmate by the name of Jovel Brown was placed on the psychiatric ward at the JNF General Hospital. He was on a suicide watch, and actually, October the 27th, he reported there was a report that he committed suicide. Since then, the hospital has made no statement. The police has made no statement. The Ministry of Health, made no statement. The autopsy, there was no conclusion on it. So, family, friends, persons, asked me if I can put this out there.
No, Jadel, he's actually, for full disclosure, a family member. Right. And they had been asked to do the family should be exposed to this at first. And I would pursue that, right? Because this is a very emotional type of thing for persons. But we will pursue that. We have been. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is that this had been pursued and would be shared with the family first. Mm-hmm. All right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The upcoming OECS meeting, what would be the critical issues on the agenda for discussion and perhaps decision making?
Right. There are a number of critical matters as I went through, and I had the opportunity to sit with the Director General, Dr. Didicus, and where we went through a number of critical things. When we're looking at that, there's some decisions to be made. For example, the decision to do with the judiciary and the judge and so forth. There's decisions to be made. And in looking at the agenda, we are looking at energy, violence in the region, and so forth. And so how we can reach regional positions with respect to that. So in broad terms, we have not publicly publicized it, but I can say that those, to me, would be some critical matters on the agenda for us to look at. Because there are some regional organizations that managed by the OECS. We have embassies that we look at. How can the OECS increase its footprint with respect to that? And the issue of energy security, what is the approach of the OECS? With respect to violence, what is the approach of the OECS? With respect to the judiciary and our legal system, what is the approach of the OECS as a collective? So in essence, we are looking at these critical matters that are coming to the agenda of the OECS. And I would say, and then in our post-meeting, we will put out a communique as to what the decisions, major decisions, would have been reached. But I can say that these are on it. Even this is an extensive agenda because of when we meet and we are going to be dealing. But for my discussions with the DG, these are some significant areas to be. And the leaders and the representative will be here. We really need this meeting to make some critical decisions with respect to regional institutions and our approach regionally in dealing with a number of these issues.
A couple more questions. Now, there has been a recent development by the government of Canada which allows nationals to travel to Canada by, instead of applying for a visa, if you've had a US visa, you now apply for an ETA. Would a person have to send off their passport, or is it done completely digital? If you give us some more clarity on that. Also, recently, the Ministry of National Security announced that the Haitian detainees have been released into the care of the Haitian community in St. Kitts and Nevis. What happens next?
Good. Well, with respect to Canada, again, I want to thank the Canadian government, the regional ambassador, and the Prime Minister Trudeau himself. He and I had a discussion on this while I was in Bahamas in February. We had the opportunity to have lunch. We had lunch. We sat next to each other, and this was a major part of our discussion. I would say others had been pressing since day one, once we lost it, to get the visa back, access back. And this, of course, was a major announcement to be made. With respect to, so I want to say that, we really want to reestablish ourselves where we were before. We had a number of foreign policy issues that we are working through. And so this was one of them. And so I know that this would affect about 25% of our population almost immediately. The ETA is what you do. Even people in Europe, they have to do it. It's a same day thing. It's electronic, same day. You don't have to send any passport anyway. You're not applying for a visa. You just put in your information and that's it. Just like they do. Almost like a pre-check-in clearance, so to speak. So that is done. And when the ambassador messaged me, that is, she didn't use those exact word, but she said it's used in Europe. It's the same day almost approval and you travel. And so I think that is some great welcoming news. First, let me say that the demand from Canada to St. Kitts has increased as well. As you know, Air Canada is going to be using a larger jet to fly into St. Kitts, which means that they already see an increase in the market with respect to the demand of coming to St. Kitts and Nevis is the busiest country, and we're serious, very buzzy, meaning that people want to get to St. Kitts. So each time you put a flight, they are full. Months in advance, you can't get a seat. Even for music festival, you can't get flights. You can't even get a hotel room. I'm sure car is full as well. Because once you put the flight, people are heading to St. Kitts. The flights are still full. Even though this is May, June, the flights are still coming into St. Kitts full. St. Kitts and our federation, we are benefiting significantly. Says Nevis as well is benefiting, as I explained in Parliament. These flights, for example, last Sunday, American Airlines is putting on extra flights They just see the demand and they say, look, we have to put on an extra flight. And that is what they had to do in order to meet the demand. And so we expect a continued increase in the demand to come to St. Kitts and Nevis. So we need more flights, more opportunities to come regionally and internationally. And then that would lead to the demand for more beds in St. Kitts and Nevis. So JetBlue will be all year round. The demand is such that we know regionally is all year round. The demand of North America has increased. The demand in Canada has increased. And therefore, if our source markets, the demand has increased so significantly, it means therefore that our tourism is, even our calls at the port, that, and the minister says she'll put that out very soon. We have a very busy call season to come, 23, 2024. So the tourist season is going to be buzzing. Already a hotelier told me that from their studies, they expect their occupancy to almost immediately increase 10%. Right? So that is one hotel that is speaking based on their present studies, and they will send me the numbers. And that translates into jobs and significant financial resource. We want to take away this seasonal aspect to tourism. How can we get tourism all year round? Why does it have to end in May? We are fighting to see how tourism can just be a natural part of things, not that it starts in 1 month and in another month. Once we have these flights, all these flights from New York, the United States, and so year round, we expect people to take them and come to St. Kitts for different reasons. So now you have, for music festival, everybody wants to come to St. Kitts. We don't have enough beds right now. People asking, why don't you open the community center and charge a fee? I just need a place to rest my head. Yeah, people seriously asking those questions. Can private people open their homes? They're asking those serious questions because they can't get flights. And the Minister of Tourism is trying hard with partners to say, man, put on some extra charter. Let's get some charter flights. You look at the demand. People can't get flights. And therefore, we want to see how we can continue to develop a tourism industry that is resilient and is not seasonal. We want it to be an industry. You might have a little dip, but you want it to be constant across the board so that you don't have taxi drivers working well from here to here, and then during that time they can't. The hotels remain, low occupancy during these months. We have to find ways to keep these hotels up to a reasonable occupancy or even filled during the year. And we are working hard on that. That means flights, that means extra things during the summer. This summer we are having music festival. That's one. We are having CPL, and we are having CONCACAF. CONCACAF is going to bring about 500 persons here between 2 to 3 weeks. And we already calculated the economic cost to be in the millions. CONCACAF is going to be here. And CPL is going to be here as well, which we are going to promote to have that type of impact. We have a solid music festival. And so we're going to be looking for other opportunities in the summer. One of the things we are working on is a film festival. A film festival. So that as soon as the tourist season drops off, we stick the film festival in there. So we want a film festival, a music festival, sporting, so that we do it. And I'm working on a fourth one. We are working on a fourth one. Yes, so the film festival, we are seriously pursuing that. And I mentioned that today because I don't like to mention things unless they are really in train, so that you can check back and say, okay, Dr. Joe spoke about the JetBlue, he spoke about immigration thing, and we are seeing those things coming. He spoke about the hospital, he spoke about renal transplant, and we are seeing these things. So if I mention it, it means that it's seriously now being pursued. There's another one, but it's not at the point where I can mention it as yet. But this one is moving along to the point where it's going to push us to get it done. So if we have multiple things in each month that are significant, you really will start to eliminate the seasonal approach and aspect to tourism. All right? Mm-hmm. Oh yes, the Haitian detainees. I was elected in August 2022. One of the first meetings I went to with CARICOM was about the Haiti situation. The Haitian situation, as you know, keeps deteriorating. Initially, we had the same issue, and we repatriated them back to Haiti. We had another issue where in March, Haitians were on a boat from Dominica heading to some other country. The boat, the engine failed. They were drifting. Our Coast Guard intercepted and saved them and brought them here. Those who were the perpetrators, fundamentally, they are in jail right now for human trafficking. But then you were left with 14 citizens of Haiti who had traveled from Dominica. You had a pregnant woman and 2 minors among them. We were pursuing the process. As you know, an injunction was placed not to send them back. At that time, the situation in Haiti, each time I have the opportunity, I speak with the president of Haiti. I spoke to him the first time, I think, face to face at UNGA, United Nations, last September. If you check, there's a picture with me greeting Trudeau and I greeting and speaking, and the Haitian president is looking on. There's a picture there. That is how early the conversation started with respect. But in speaking to him over time, the situation in Haiti became worse and worse and worse and worse. And each time CARICOM meets, we discuss it. And right now, it is in a very bad situation. So it's not like when it first happened, it has progressed. And so we have taken the decision after we did our national security. These persons came from Dominica on their way to another country. We recognized no history of anything that would affect our security from our analysis and so forth. And so when you have that situation, where you have a country that is deteriorating, all of us know that, and you have with you pregnant woman, 2 children, people, the question becomes, what do you do with those people? With these human beings? So we had really going to change our laws as well to make sure that trafficking is tough, so that people know St. Kitts have tough laws when it comes to trafficking, so that traffickers don't think that St. Kitts is a place to travel to. They're supposed to think St. Kitts is a place to avoid, if I'm thinking trafficking. But in their situation, they never intended to come here. We saved their lives eventually, and I want to thank really the Coast Guard for the work that they did. Brought them here to St. Kitts and Nevis, and we had been taking care of them. I think the pregnant lady might be in the hospital now, and the children are minors. For all that is worth, they need to be getting some sort of education. And those who are there, how can you send them back? The last time I spoke to the president, we had a discussion. I mean, it is so bad there. I mean, you know, we were thinking, how can you get things to Haiti? Well, they can get to the port, but they can't get to the port to even the hands of the people. You know, and we were saying, so we can't send anything. And that is how dire the situation. And our own honorary consul, well, his father was abducted in Haiti. He's now in the United States. They have to, you know, get him to safety after that. And so we have decided to make the provisional decision to allow them with the Haitian community. That would allow them a better condition of living, in the sense that instead of having them at a detained center, and you don't have the option of sending them back to their country. When you had it, there was an injunction placed, and the situation is deteriorating. You have children, pregnant people, and so forth. And so that has been the provisional decision at this particular time. I would say that the decision at that time, after doing significant checks, following all the laws, making sure that you do what you had to do, that decision was made because of the present conditions that exist now, right? So the question asks, we're still going to pursue, because we still feel that people should be in their country, right? And so this is the decision, the provisional decision, based on the conditions right now, right? Mm-hmm.
So the short version is, sorry. So the short version is they'll be living here while some method is pursued to return them home?
So I would say the situations will continue to be monitored. If conditions become such that they can be home, then that would be where we will go. But based on where it is now, they just can't be home. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I'll allow for one more question. Mr. Bhatt has a final question, and then we'll have the Prime Minister give his closing remarks.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Prime Minister, some weeks ago, the JNF Hospital, JNF Hospital received some, what do you call it again, dialysis machines. I think it's about 15 of them, I believe. And then there has been some talk in the community that there's something wrong with these machines, that parts are missing and
Community of fake pages.
or fake pages, whatever you want to call it. But the thing is, it's out there. Could you address that particular issue? What is the state of these machines? How soon will they be put into operation?
So these machines were donated from a major hospital in Canada through one of our experts, one of our nationals who live there in the diaspora, Mr. Estridge, who is a technician, a specialized person in these. And so these machines were donated to us. These are very good machines that were donated to us by the institution that have been passed. When we got these machines, it was in the winter. And because it was in the winter, you couldn't ship them because whatever substances they have in their structure, the cold would freeze it. And so we took the decision to store them in a warm storage area. That is why they didn't come earlier. And then once spring came and the temperature went back up, that is when we decided to ship them to St. Kitts and Nevis. So they're in very good stead. We have turned them on, and the vast majority of them are in condition. In speaking to Mr. Estridge recently, we are now putting a specialized team that will travel from Canada to St. Kitts to do the training. Once the training is done, the hospital is asking us, what else do you need in St. Kitts and Nevis? But once we get our people trained, we can have more machines, and we can have other type of machines as well that they would want to donate here to St. Kitts and Nevis. And so when I hear that side talk, really that is just talk. And again, these are fake pages and people out there trying to cause some dispersion on a good program. And we are saying we are going to continue to pursue developing relationships with institutions of health all around the world. That is just one. We are going to develop a relationship with another major university in Canada. Right now, we are pursuing a relationship with universities in the UK. Dr. Hakim from the Imperial College and Cleveland Clinic London was here recently. Remember, we spoke about our renal transplant program? He's the doctor who is pursuing it. And we are pursuing it vehemently, very aggressively, to see if we can introduce a renal program, because we have a number of young people who are now on dialysis if they do, and we want them to have the option of renal transplant. That is how serious we are. We are developing relationships with other institutions. For example, the Cardiac Center in Jamaica, came here and did the training of our nurses and doctors. And we are pursuing a relationship for cardiac services here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Relationship with Cuba. We want Cuba to now help us with our primary health care, which Cuba has one of the best primary health care in the world. And now we are taking it a bit further instead of just having specialists, but help us to set up a primary system that can benefit our people. I was just told that a major institution in Panama wants to have a conversation with us to see how we can develop a relationship, pursuing a relationship with an institution in Colombia. So we are going to connect with the people. Right now, we are developing a relationship with the University of Hamburg, Medical University faculty of Hamburg, so that we can start our sickle cell program. Remember, I spoke about the sickle cell program that we'll offer to the OECS. That is being pursued. So wherever we can get the expertise and the help, I'm going to pursue that, because at the end of the day, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis can have access to good health care if we pursue the right partnerships and relationships. Just going to Cuba, Cuba has sent a neurologist, that's a brain specialist. We never had one of those here before. Cuba has sent an internist with focus in intensive care. Has saved multiple lives because of his specialty. Cuba has sent a specialist with focus in emergency room care as well. We had another doctor, Dr. Gate, who came here, who is a surgeon from the United States. And because of that, he's working with our competent surgeons here. And together they're forming a good partnership. Our doctors here, hard-working doctors. They have done significantly well. And if we form the right partnership, we can improve. And that has led to improve outcomes, improve care. We started our program to help children, send them when they need heart surgeries and so forth. We had a child here who needed a particular surgery and couldn't travel. We brought the doctor in because, again, of relationships. The child did not survive because he was so bad, but at least the child had a chance, and the child wouldn't have had a chance previously. What we did is we have a now relationship with the World Pediatric League, where they come in and they give instructions in neonatal care. That's the very newborn, but they give it at a very high and sophisticated level, not introductory level, at critical care level. And our nurses and doctors benefit from that, and because of that, we will save more children. So these are the type of partnerships, and that's the first time that has happened here in St. Kitts and Nevis. That's the first time we are contemplating renal transplant. The first day we have had some specialists of these kinds in St. Kitts and Nevis. We are now going to make laparoscopy routine, endoscopy expanded. The MRI is set to come soon. We are going to start the specialized building for it, and the MRI is going to come, which is going to enhance our possibility of doing diagnostic testing. We have bought significant number of machines in the lab, and look how we have revamped our blood bank to the point where I think they went to Marriott the other day, or some institution, and they were able to collect blood till they're telling me they're running out of bags for blood. So sometimes we put the advertisement out there, not that we don't have blood, but we want to keep the stock up. So if we can put it out there and and Jason can go and give some blood, that is good. So we have a stock. And once it's got below a certain level, we ask the people to come and give some blood. And we have done amazing there. We're gonna come. We have the eye machine. People can now go and get the cataract surgeries done, which have started. And I want to thank Dr. Crespo and nurse, I think it's Lois who is there, for their excellent work, and their team who have been working hard. We had to buy a new anesthesiology machine for the theater. That's the machine they put you on when they put you to sleep. We had to get a new cabinet for mixing of drugs. So we have done multiple significant things. Then these things are positively affecting the lives of our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Has it ended? No. We're going to break ground for the new hospital this year. We have started to lay the foundation for an electronic medical record system connecting the hospitals and institutions. The cable won the bid, and the cable has now signed the contract, and that process has started, so that we can have an information system in healthcare that is second to none. We want it to be modern. So these significant things we have done in this short space of time. And just next year after, when you look at the health statistics, you'll see that people live longer. And not only live longer, but you would have saved more lives in the hospitals because of these measures. We're already saving people who would have passed away previously, and saving children who would have been dead previously. But I think that takes time for people to appreciate that type of significant work and investment that we are doing presently. So what we have done for health, we are going to do for national security as well. We're not going to accept the status quo. We know we have the expertise, and where we don't have it, we can build the partnerships to make sure that we get the best outcome we can have for our country. So we're going to be relentless in every sector: orange economy, tourism, national security, health, Ministry of Finance, to deal with the water situation, energy situation, trade, manufacturing, wherever, because there is a cadre of ministers who are hardworking and competent. Look at what the AG has done in bringing all those bills, including the good governance laws, things that people are talking about for such a long period of time. In less than a year, he has brought them to the parliament. The issue of marijuana and the conscience to worship as you wish, brought to the parliament. So I can go from each. The Minister of Education, he already has his laptops. Laptops are here to be distributed in September under the revamped one-to-one laptop program to make sure that our people have access to technology. But we learned previously that there are some things we can improve upon, which we are going to do. When you go, and that's just that. And if you go to number 2, I guess the Honorable Marshall speaks for herself. The Honorable Economist Maynard on water and energy. The Honorable Samuel Duggins on agriculture and the orange economy and so forth. He's building out his small business ministry, which is to complete in about 6 weeks. And if you go around and come all the way, foreign affairs, we had diplomatic week where we brought 50-something major countries here into St. Kitts and Nevis. And then you see what we are doing in health, the banks, the CBI program and so forth to strengthen it, that, the immigration, making sure that we get back to where we were. So if you look at what is happening, we are doing significant amount of work in a short space of time. But sometimes it takes time to catch up. Have we been perfect? No, we'll never be perfect. But if you just check the score sheet, you'll say that this administration is creating the foundation for a very strong St. Kitts and Nevis in all aspects. And we're not going to accept anything less than that, because our people deserve the best. Thank you very much. And so I want to wrap up by thanking the people once again for joining us on this round table, where I enjoy sitting with the press. The press asks very hard and difficult questions, but I think sometimes a dialogue makes the flow of information much better and much more easier to consume. So thank you once again, and I want to thank the press as well for their participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with the media and share your insights on the national issues of concern that they would have had. And I'm sure that the media appreciates the opportunity as well to dialogue with you and to have their questions answered. And also thank you again to the media houses, the representatives, Mr. Batt, Mr. Davis, and Mr. Rankin for coming out and joining us. And also Miss Lanicia Collins, our sign language interpreter, for offering her talents and allowing us to reach the deaf community. This is an initiative that the Prime Minister is very passionate about. So you have just viewed the round table. Thank you for listening, for joining us this week, and we will be back again next month. Thank you. Have a blessed day.